Hi guys, welcome back. So, the last bit of acid-base chemistry for the standard levels is a topic known as acid deposition, and this is a serious environmental problem that obviously needs solving. So, without further ado, let's get into some of the science behind it. Now, acid deposition is the process of acidic particles, gases, or precipitation in the atmosphere being deposited on the ground, so such as acid rain, acid fog, acid snow, and there's also dry deposition, so acidic gases and particulates in the atmosphere or in the air that you breathe. Now, rainwater itself is naturally acidic and generally has a pH of about 5.6. That's what works out to an NH plus concentration, and this is generally as a result of this equilibrium reaction here. So CO2 in the atmosphere reacts with water to form carbonic acid, um, which furthermore undergoes this equilibrium here. And acid rain is an environmental problem with rain that has a pH lower than 5.6. So some of the extremes is that a pH of 1.7, acid rain of pH 1.7 was recorded for rainwater in LA in December 1982. And this is an extreme, however, this is obviously pretty bad. For reference, that would be like if it was raining hydrochloric acid, for context. I don't think you'd want that. Now, the main pollutants responsible for this are oxides of sulfur and oxides of nitrogen. Before we sort of go into the specifics, let's go over a few key terms. A pollutant is a substance that produces harmful effects on things. An anthropogenic source is a pollutant that has human origins, and a primary air pollutant is something that is directly added to the atmosphere, and a secondary air pollutant is a pollutant that is formed in the atmosphere from a primary pollutant through chemical reactions. First, let's consider the oxides of sulfur and how they produce acid rain. Now, sulfur dioxide is a primary pollutant produced in large quantities due to human activities. It's generally, you get sulfur dioxide from the process of extracting metals from their ores. So here we have copper sulfide, and when you smelt the ore, you get this, and you get SO2. Um, Fossil fuels also have sulfur impurities, and when they're burned, they produce SO2. Uh, and then, but however, the most important anthropogenic source of SO2 is the burning of coal. Um, Coal is primarily composed of carbon, but sulfur is a common impurity in the coal. Low-grade coal can have up to 7% sulfur. However, there are higher grades of coal that contain typically 1 to 5%. There's elemental sulfur, minerally bound sulfur, and organic bound sulfur. It doesn't really matter where the sulfur comes from, since it all turns into SO2. What's the problem with this? This SO2 oxidizes, meaning that oxygen is added in the atmosphere to form SO3, and when it's in the atmosphere, what happens is that SO2 will react, that is released into the atmosphere, will react with water in the atmosphere to form sulfuric acid, which is a strong acid and is known to cause problems. Sulfuric acid is the main pollutant in acid rain, in most acid rain, and it's technically a secondary. This is a primary pollutant, and SO3 is a secondary pollutant. However, it's all anthropogenic because it all comes from the burning of coal. Um, the other major producer of main problem with acid rain, the other main source of acid rain, I should say, is oxides of nitrogen. Nitrogen monoxide is a primary pollutant that also comes from anthropogenic sources. However, it typically comes from the exhaust pipes of cars. Since it's very hot in the exhaust pipes of cars, there is actually enough energy. Well, some nitrogen molecules will have enough energy to break their triple bond and form nitrogen monoxide from reacting with oxygen in the atmosphere. So, at the high temperatures present during the combustion chamber of a car engine, you will get this reaction here. And then in the atmosphere at cooler temperatures, this NO gas is oxidized into nitrogen dioxide. This nitrogen dioxide will react with water in the atmosphere to form nitric acid and nitrous acid. This is a strong acid. This is not. Doesn't matter though. They're both acids, and this is a problem. Acid rain is a serious problem, and this is sort of how it comes about. What are the consequences of acid deposition or acid rain? Acid deposition, mainly in the form of acid rain. Um, I am not an ecologist. I am not a biologist. I'm only going to say what's on the sheet. What's on my notes here briefly. Well, my teacher's notes technically, but plants die, fish die, humans die. That's it. Also, visibility is lowered. Things will corrode because acids are corrosive since their H plus ions will pick up electrons from other stuff. Um, yeah, this is all bad. This is all bad. Now, what are some methods that we can use to sort of help reduce um, pollution? Um, Now, from an environmental standpoint, the easy solution is stop using coal. Which, yeah, there's a pretty big push to stop using coal these days, and I am all for it. Um, yeah, there's really not much more to say beyond stop burning coal. Now, what if you, like for most of the world, have oil lobbyists in your parliaments that pretty much cause them to be fucking handicapped? Now, what we can do here is that we can use less dirty coal that has and use low sulfur, cleaner burning coal. Um, we could also use some pre and post combustion methods. So, some pre combustion methods would be bubbling hydrogen gas into petroleum or into petroleum to form hydrogen sulfide gas, which is easily removed. Um, some of the problems with that is just it causes the energy density of the fuel to be less by quite a significant amount. I think it's about 30% loss, and that's sort of why it's not as popular an option as it should be. We can also literally wash the coal, like with water and stuff. Uh, Stupid idea, but it seems to work, so there's that. And then lastly, we could use post combustion methods using wet and dry scrubbers. So a scrubber is a system that removes pollutants from industrial. Basically, they react with the sulfur to, they react with SO2. So here's an example of a dry scrubber. So C8 calcium carbonate and SO2 will form calcium sulfate and CO2. This is a problem for the atmosphere, but hey, no acid rain at least. And then with wet scrubbers, we can use aqueous reagents, dry scrubbers, dry reagents, and you can form calcium sulfate and water. This does not cause problems to the environment. You could also use fluidized bed combustion, in which powdered limestone and calcium oxide and other sulfur-absorbing chemicals can be mixed with coal in the combustion chamber, and then the heat of them will not cause it to form SO2. It will cause it to form other sulfur compounds that are not those things. So here, for example, if you throw this in when you're burning your coal, it'll react with this to form that. And that's sort of it there. I'd like to end this particular video because it does cover a serious environmental issue with these are sort of real world applications of chemistry that apply to your everyday life. Like, I'm sure most people have heard of acid rain, and these were serious problems, and they probably still are serious problems. They're not as serious as emitting CO2 into the fucking atmosphere, but please lobby your governments to do shit. We obviously in the middle of this coronavirus crisis, the climate change is put on the back burner, but when we re-emerge from this, like, this is pretty great for the environment because no one's going out, no one's using their cars, no one's going to work, everyone's staying at home, airplanes aren't flying, and this is really good for the environment. Like, today I'm recording this video, and while I can't go outside due to quarantine measures, it's a very lovely day out, and this could be the start of a new age in green electricity and all that stuff. So push your governments to enact clean measures. Stop the oil. Tell your governments to not buy into oil lobbyist propaganda. CO2 is terrible for the environment. It's already having real world consequences, like in the islands of Kiribati, their islands are fucking sinking. They are fucking sinking. So, yeah, I hope you allowed me that quick rant, but please take action. Like, tell your governments to take action on climate change and protect the environment. It's really important. Like, fish die due to acid rain, and if we don't, and who cares about fish, right? They're not important to us, but the reality is that some people, their diets only consist of fish because that's all they can scrummage from their environment. So if we take away that food source, we essentially kill those people off. It's a lot easier to argue. It's a lot harder to argue against essentially killing people than it is fish. So, with that in mind, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Maybe we'll do more off-winded rants like this.